Howdy everyone, it is Chef Evans, and we are going to be going over Chapter 3, the Safe Food Handler. Even though that says 4, it's actually Chapter 3. Okay, well, I'm not going to bore y'all by going over the objectives. Y'all can read for yourselves. We're going to be going over how to be a safe food handler in today's society. All right. Okay, so different ways that food handlers can contaminate food. You can contaminate food by having a foodborne illness, having wounds or boils that contain a pathogen, by sneezing or coughing, having contact with a person who is sick, using the restroom and not washing your hands, and when you have symptoms such as diarrhea, vomiting, or jaundice, which we talked about in the last chapter. Okay, different actions that can contaminate food: scratching your scalp, running fingers through your hair, wiping or touching your nose, rubbing your ear, touching a pimple or infected wound, wearing a dirty uniform, coughing or sneezing into your hands, or spitting in the operation, which, good Lord, why in the heck would you be spitting? Anyway, now we do have some illnesses that are not foodborne, such as HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, hepatitis B or C, not to be confused with hepatitis A, which is one of our big six easily contaminated or contagious diseases. But anyway, if you have one of these, the ADA provides civil rights protections for these different diseases because they are not foodborne. All right, so we as managers must focus on creating personal hygiene policies, training food handlers, modeling correct behavior, supervising safety practices, and revising personal hygiene policies when laws or science change, which happens all the time, as with COVID. All right, so where to wash your hands are only in hand washing sinks. You can see this is a proper hand washing sink station between the sink, the soap, the paper towels, and the sign that all employees must wash hands before going back to work. You are never to wash anything in these sinks except your hands. We have seen people try and wash vegetables and things like that in the sinks before, and that is a big no-no. They are for hand washing only. So, because of COVID, our hand washing procedures have changed a little bit. So, same thing, you're going to be wetting your hands and arms, applying soap, and then instead of scrubbing your hands and arms vigorously for 10 to 15 seconds, it's actually going to be 15 to 20 seconds now because of COVID. And then you're going to rinse your hands and arms and dry with a single-use paper towel. And then, of course, if you are in the bathroom, use a paper towel or something to open the door. But all of our sinks are out in the open, so you don't have to worry about that in our kitchen. So food handlers should be washing their hands quite a few times before you're preparing food, before working with clean equipment and utensils, and before putting on gloves. Then you need to wash your hands after using the restroom, touching the body or clothing, coughing, sneezing, blowing your nose, eating, drinking, smoking, chewing gum or tobacco, handling soiled items, handling raw meat, seafood, or poultry, and taking out the garbage. Also, when you are handling service or aquatic animals, handling chemicals that might affect food safety, changing tasks specifically before beginning a new task. And I know this is a question. When should you change your gloves? Ooh, sorry about that. Leaving and returning to the kitchen prep area, handling money, using electronic devices like this person is up here, and touching anything that may contaminate hands. Corrective action must be taken if they have contaminated anything with dirty hands. You must dispose of the contaminated food, clean potentially contaminated equipment and utensils, and then retrain or coach food handlers who are not following the correct hand washing procedures. All right, we do have hand antiseptic as well. And you'll note too that I know this is a test question. Hand antiseptics is used to lower the number of pathogens on the skin. It does not actually clean your skin. So that's why we have to put it on after washing our hands. Like I said, should only be used after hand washing and must never be used in place of hand washing. I know these are test questions. All right, so you can see here we have the good employee who is highlighting the proper way to have your hands in a food service position. Fake nails are not permitted, neither is fingernail polish. So why? What are these if they fall off? What kind of contamination is that? We've talked about that last chapter. What happens if your fingernails polish chips off? That is also a physical contamination. If you have a cut, we have different options. This is a finger cot. We do not actually use finger cots. We use Band-Aids and a glove. So if you have an issue, we would give you a Band-Aid and a glove to put over it. All right, so basically we don't want you handling ready-to-eat food without gloves. This is not a ready-to-eat food. This is going to require further cooking. So this is a TCS food that requires further cooking. So you can handle this with with bare hands because we are going to continually cook it. So an item is only considered a ready-to-eat food when it does not require further cooking, such as a lunch meat sandwich. So we've got lunch meat here, some cut vegetables, a bun, and you can see this person is wearing gloves because it is a ready-to-eat food that requires no further cooking before eating. So when you're handling ready-to-eat food, you do need to wear gloves. Our gloves will be approved, disposable. We do have them in multiple sizes, and we do have latex alternatives. When using gloves, you're going to wash your hands before. Make sure that you're wearing the right size. Check for rips or tears once they're on. Never blow into gloves. Never roll on or make them easier to put on, and never wash and reuse gloves. All right, so you're going to change them as soon as they become dirty or torn, before beginning a different task, after an interruption, such as taking a phone call or a text or a snap or anything, after handling raw meat, seafood, or poultry, and before handling ready-to-eat food, or after 4 hours of continuous use, meaning if you're in the trenches and you're doing a single task for 4 hours, you would change them after 4 hours, even if you haven't changed tasks. All right, so our job is to make sure that y'all are clean and that your clothing is appropriate. Hair restraints must be worn. Hair accessories have to make sure that they could not become physical contaminants. False eyelashes, not allowed. So I know that's a big trend these days. If you have false eyelashes, you cannot work in the kitchen. And we do have, we just give you an extra hairnet for beard restraint. You must wear clean clothing, including your aprons. And if you are leaving the prep area, you need to take off your apron. And of course, wash your hands before you put it back on. All right, so I know this is a test question as well. You can only wear a plain band ring for jewelry. And I know they always put it as an option. A medic alert bracelet is not allowed. Just that plain band, that's it. All right, so eating and drinking, smoking, all that kind of mess is in designated areas only that do not include food prep areas. So you'll see here that this is allowed because it will not create a cross-contamination if it is spilled. That's why we want y'all to have, either some sort of water bottle or something that you can screw on when you are drinking in the kitchen. We also have tasting spoons and tasting plates when you are tasting some food. All right, now we're going to talk about different items to keep in mind when you are sick. So, if you are ill, you need to report before you come to work. And then, of course, if you have anyone or you have any one of the big six, then you definitely need to let us know because we have to make a decision. So we will have to decide to either restrict or exclude them from the operation. And we'll go into some more detail here in the next couple of slides. This is where you're definitely going to want to take some notes if you haven't been already, because I know this is on the test. So when you are a manager, you have to watch your employees to make sure that they don't have any signs of illness, including vomiting, excessive trips to the bathroom, yellowing of the skin, cold sweats or chills, or persistent nasal discharge. So if the food handler has an infected wound or boiled, you need to restrict them if it is not properly covered. But like I said, we have Band-Aids, gloves, we will get you hooked up. If you have a sore throat or fever, you're going to be restricted from the working with food, so we'll usually put you on dish, or exclude if you primarily serve a high-risk population. Now, what is a high-risk population? Who are our high-risk categories? The very young, the very old, and the immunocompromised. So that would include if you work at a daycare, if you work at a nursing home, if you work at a hospital or like a cancer center or something like that, you would be primarily serving a high-risk population. So if you have an employee with a sore throat or fever, they're going to be excluded from work that day. Sneezing, coughing, runny nose, you're going to be restricted from working with food. And if you have vomiting, diarrhea, or jaundice, you will be excluded from the operation. Now, if you have vomiting and diarrhea and you have had no symptoms for 24 hours, or you have a written release from your doctor, then you can go back to work after 24 hours. However, jaundice has to be reported to the regulatory authority. And before returning to work, you have to have a written release from your doctor and approval from the regulatory authority. Okay, so obviously, if we have any one of the big six, then you're going to be excluded from the operation. We have to report the situation to the regulatory authority, and we have to work with the doctor and the regulatory authority before you can come back to work. All right, again, if there are any questions, just let us know. Hope this helped.